I didn't move from London voluntarily. I was married to a man who did not have my best interest at heart, and I inherited a house, and we had to get a mortgage to make basic things to it. He didn't pay the mortgage, so we had to sell up to avoid repossession. And then we moved, and then, of course, he just spent money and money and money and money, flashing it around, pretending he had all this cash, trying to impress people. And, of course, all the money was gone. Then he buggered off with somebody who we thought was a better prospect. I then met my second partner, and obviously I stayed down here. I didn't have any money. It wasn't like I could move back to London. I'd been away from it at that point for about 6 years. And, I couldn't afford to go back. My sister lived in London. Weirdly, she moved permanently to London from North Wales just as I moved out. And my daughter moved back to London. And since the advent of the internet and me being able to, because my children were slightly older and could stay with my partner or whatever, I've been in and out of London a lot. Would I move back? If I could afford it, yes, I would. But I would need a lot more money to maintain my standard of living that I can afford here. So I would need an awful lot of money, and I'm not sure that I won't ever get that money. Now, people always think about rural living as wonderful, but if you want to know about a drugs problem, you go to a small rural town and try and live in it without any money, because there's nothing for the kids to do and it's very hard to get out. We didn't drive, so my kids couldn't do activities because we couldn't get to them. They weren't here, whereas had they lived in London, it would have been a bus ride away. They could have done all sorts of affordable things on a bus ride. There is food. Food is a real problem. If you've got no money and you don't drive, I, for many years, was stuck with my local co-op, which is really expensive, or donning a huge, big, proper army rucksack and loading it with food from Salisbury Market. And I would stagger back, bent over, because it was as much as I could carry. Do I prefer living here? It's more equal in the country. Although I work for some very wealthy clients, the lifestyle that they live day to day is not that much different from mine, because there aren't the things to do here. There aren't the smart restaurants. You can't go and see the place. Of course, they go on much nicer holidays. They have much nicer houses, better cars. But on a daily level, there's only so much, if they want to go for a drink, they all this kind of stuff. However, the thing about London is that you have access to the market, you have access to public transport system. So for not a lot of money, you can travel across London. You've got the theatre, you've got plays, you've got community groups, all of that stuff that you just don't have access to where I am. So each has its pluses and its minuses. At this stage in my life, like I said, I would probably, if I could afford it, but I would need a lot of money, I would move back to London. Obviously, I would miss some things. It's very beautiful round here. And I would miss my friends, and I wouldn't leave because I've got clients here. But yes, it is not necessarily a rural idyll living in the country. It's got a severe downside that people never talk about.